Welcome to our deep dive into the world of cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity, yeah.
You've given us some excellent material for this one.
It's a fascinating field, definitely.
Especially, well, these excerpts from Hugo Hoffman's books.
Cybersecurity Bible and Cybersecurity for Beginners.
Right, those two.
Yeah, good choices.
It seems like you're really interested in getting a good understanding of the threats.
Absolutely.
And how to mitigate them.
Yeah, and also what it's like to actually work in cybersecurity.
Right, yeah.
Which is something that Hoffman really delves into.
So Hoffman seems to provide a really strong foundation for getting into all this. So
yeah, he really lays it all out. Where should we begin?
Let's start with some fundamentals.
Okay, so Cybersecurity 101.
Biff.
Both books kind of go over some key terms.
The building blocks, right?
Right, like vulnerability, exploit, threat, and risk.
It's important to really grasp those.
Yeah, I think so. If you don't understand those, you can't really go anywhere.
Okay.
So let's take the denial of service attack,
okay,
which Hoffman uses as an example.
Okay.
Think of a vulnerability as a design flaw in a web server's software. An exploit is the tool or technique a hacker might use to take advantage of that flaw. And the threat is the actual hacker aiming to flood the server with traffic.
So the risk is the probability of that attack happening.
Exactly.
And the potential damage if it does.
You got it.
Okay.
It seems simple, but it's really important.
I think so too.
Understanding those terms helps us break down those complex attacks and build effective defenses.
Okay.
Now, Hoffman also talks about security zones, setting up the defenses of your, digital fortress.
He mentions inside, outside, and DMZ.
Yeah.
I always found those a bit confusing.
They can be, yeah.
Can you maybe try to clear those up?
Sure. So think of the inside as your trusted network. It's the heart of your operations, right? The outside is the internet at large, the Wild West, basically.
Yeah.
And the DMZ, or demilitarized zone, is a buffer zone.
Between the two.
Between the two, exactly.
Okay.
You might place a web server there, accessible to the public, but isolated from your internal network.
So if the web server is compromised, the damage is contained.
The damage is limited. Exactly. It's all about risk management.
Okay.
Another key concept he talks about is the OSI model.
I remember encountering that.
It can be a bit technical.
Yeah, it seemed pretty technical.
All those different layers.
Why is that so important?
Well, think of the OSI model as a blueprint for network communication.
Okay.
It breaks down the process into 7 layers, each with its own function.
Okay.
Knowing these layers helps you pinpoint where vulnerabilities exist and choose the right security tools.
So if you understand the anatomy, you can diagnose and treat the problem better.
Much more effectively.
Okay, now let's get to hacking 101.
The exciting part.
Yeah, so Hoffman describes some pretty interesting attacks.
He's got some great descriptions.
I'd love to kind of unpack those a bit more.
Sure, so his descriptions are very vivid and make them easy to understand.
Okay.
Even for someone who's not very technical.
One that stood out was the TCP/SYN flood.
Oh.
The analogy he used was a server's like a store, and it suddenly gets overwhelmed with customers.
Yeah, and they never actually buy anything.
Right, so it's a great visual.
It is.
So what's really happening there?
So the attacker is exploiting the server's vulnerability, which is its limited capacity to handle connections by flooding it with bogus requests.
Okay, and that prevents legitimate users from connecting.
Exactly, causing a denial of service.
Okay.
Another attack he describes is the ping of death.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Sending oversized packets to crash systems.
Like stuffing an envelope until it bursts.
It's a great visual, right?
Right.
So data packets normally have a size limit. This attack sends huge packets, overloading the system and potentially causing a crash.
Okay.
It's kind of scary how much damage can be done.
Yeah. It is a little bit frightening.
With even simple techniques.
Now, what about spoofing attacks?
Oh, yeah, spoofing.
Those are like wolves in sheep's clothing, right?
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So spoofing is about disguising your identity.
Okay.
Imagine a hacker spoofing an IP address to make it look like traffic is coming from a trusted network.
Okay.
They gain access by tricking the system.
Okay.
But there's a whole other angle to hacking, which is social engineering.
Right. That's where the human element comes in.
Yeah. Hoffman talks about phishing attacks, which are all about manipulating people into giving up sensitive information.
So a well-crafted email can trick even experienced users
Absolutely. They can be very convincing.
right into clicking a bad link or giving up their credentials.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
It's a good reminder that security is not just about the technology,
Yeah, no.
but also understanding psychology
Yeah.
and how attackers exploit our trust.
It's a big part of it.
Now, Hoffman also mentions botnets and malware,
Right. Those are big ones.
emphasizing their impact.
Yeah, they're serious threats.
So botnets are networks of infected computers.
Yeah, hijacked by hackers
Okay.
to carry out large-scale attacks.
And malware includes things like viruses and Trojans.
Right. Anything designed to infiltrate systems and steal data,
Okay.
it's a big problem.
Now, before we get too overwhelmed, let's talk about passwords and cryptography.
Something that affects everyone, right?
Yeah, Hoffman drops a crazy fact in there.
Oh, yeah.
A 12-character password with numbers and symbols
Yeah.
can take 8,500 years to crack.
That's mind-blowing.
That's a long time.
It is.
It really emphasizes the importance of strong passwords.
Yes.
But how do those password crackers even work?
There are a few methods.
Okay.
There's brute force,
Okay.
which is systematically trying every combination,
Uh-huh.
which takes a long time,
Especially with complex passwords.
especially with complex passwords. Yeah.
What else?
Then there are dictionary attacks,
Okay.
trying common words and phrases.
Which is why password 123 is a bad idea.
The worst.
So what are the takeaways here?
Use strong, unique passwords
Okay.
for every account,
Right.
at least 12 characters,
Right.
mix of uppercase, lowercase numbers, and symbols.
Okay.
No dictionary words, no names, no important dates.
Right. It's like leaving your front door open
Exactly.
and never reuse the same password on
Never.
a different account.
And multi-factor authentication.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It's essential.
So even if your password is stolen,
Yeah.
they need a second form of verification.
Like a code from your phone or something.
Okay, so that's great advice.
Good stuff.
Let's move on to security tools and practices.
Okay, sounds good.
Hoffman mentions eliminating unnecessary services
Yes, absolutely.
and using secure protocols like HTTPS.
So why do you think that is?
Well, I guess every service running is a potential entry point
Exactly.
for an attacker.
It's like leaving doors open.
Right, okay.
So you want to reduce your attack surface as much as possible.
Fewer doors, fewer ways to break in.
Exactly.
Okay, and what about HTTPS?
That's all about secure communication.
Okay.
Encrypting data between your browser and the website.
Okay.
So always look for that little padlock.
Oh, right, in the address bar.
It's a sign of a secure connection.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Now, Hoffman also mentions this tool called Nmap.
Ah, Nmap. That's a good one.
So what is that exactly?
Nmap is like a digital detective's toolkit.
Okay.
It allows you to scan networks,
Okay. discover
what devices are connected,
Right.
what services are running,
Uh-huh.
and even identify potential vulnerabilities.
So it's like a security checkup for your network.
Exactly.
Okay.
Hoffman also stresses the importance of patch management
Okay.
and using centralized antivirus software
Mhm.
because software vulnerabilities are constantly being discovered
Oh,
and
wow.
attackers love to exploit them.
So patching your systems is like,
Plugging those security holes.
right, before someone can exploit them.
Exactly.
Right.
And centralized antivirus ensures all your devices are protected.
Okay. That seems crucial for larger networks
Absolutely.
where you can't manage every device individually.
It would be a nightmare.
Okay. What else should people keep in mind?
Well, Hoffman highlights something very simple,
Okay.
but essential.
Correct.
Educating IT staff and end users on security best practices.
Because even with the best technology,
Yeah,
human error can still create vulnerabilities.
absolutely.
So training people to recognize phishing emails, create strong passwords,
Yeah,
and follow security protocols.
it's just as important as having the right tools.
Okay.
And he also touches on VPNs, which create secure connections,
Uh-huh.
and RAID configurations,
Okay.
which protect data by using multiple hard drives.
So many layers of protection.
It's all about layers.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and explore the world of cybersecurity professionals.
Okay, sounds good.
What kind of jobs are out there?
Lots.
And what's it really like to work in this field?
Hoffman paints a pretty compelling picture.
Okay.
There are consultants,
Okay.
analysts, engineers, officers,
Uh-huh.
and even ethical hackers,
Really?
all with different roles and responsibilities.
Sounds like there's a lot of variety.
There is.
What about the pros and cons?
Well, cybersecurity professionals are in high demand,
Uh-huh.
and the work can be really stimulating and rewarding.
Okay.
Many people enjoy the flexibility and the constant learning involved,
Okay.
but it's not all sunshine and roses.
Right.
Hoffman mentions the high pressure The constant need to stay vigilant.
Yeah.
And sometimes a lack of understanding from management. It can be stressful, you know?
Being on the front lines of defending against attacks.
Exactly.
And frustrating when management doesn't understand.
Yeah, it can be tough.
Okay.
But ultimately, it's a very rewarding career path.
For those who are passionate about it.
Absolutely.
So what advice does Hoffman give to people who are interested in this field?
He really emphasizes networking and certifications.
All right.
Building connections can open doors, and certifications validate your skills.
So what other practical tips does he offer?
He suggests gaining experience through volunteering, applying your skills to real-world projects, and using platforms like LinkedIn.
Okay, so before we move on to part 2.
Sounds good.
Let's pause and reflect for a second.
Okay.
What stood out to you most from all this information?
What strikes me is how Hoffman seamlessly blends the technical aspects with the human element. It's not just about firewalls and encryption.
Right.
It's about people making informed decisions.
You're absolutely right. Technology is crucial.
It is.
But ultimately, it's people who are the first line of defense.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that human element is exactly where social engineering comes in. It's a fascinating and sometimes unsettling aspect of cybersecurity that Hoffman really delves into.
It really is. It's all about psychology and manipulation, using deception to exploit vulnerabilities in human behavior rather than technology.
Yeah.
What are some examples of these attacks?
Well, phishing is a prime example. Hoffman talks about how phishing attacks are becoming increasingly sophisticated, going far beyond those obvious spam emails we used to see.
Right, he mentions how attackers now craft messages that look incredibly legitimate, mimicking trusted brands and individuals.
It's like a digital wolf in sheep's clothing.
Oh, yeah.
You might get an email that appears to be from your bank or a social media platform, but it's actually a cleverly disguised trap designed to steal your credentials.
He mentions several variations of phishing, starting with bulk phishing, which seems like casting a wide net to catch as many victims as possible.
Right. It's like sending out thousands of generic messages, hoping that a few people will take the bait, but then there's spear phishing, which is far more targeted and, frankly, more sinister.
Like a spear, it's aimed at a specific individual or organization, often someone with access to valuable information or systems.
Exactly. Hoffman gives the example of an attacker targeting a company executive with a personalized email appearing to be from a trusted colleague or partner. It might contain a link to a fake website designed to steal their login credentials or even malicious software that could infiltrate the company's network.
That's scary. What can be done to protect against these kinds of attacks?
Hoffman stresses the importance of education and awareness. People need to be trained to recognize the signs of phishing attempts, to be skeptical of unsolicited emails or messages, and to verify requests for sensitive information.
He even suggests running simulated phishing campaigns within organizations to test employees' awareness and reinforce training. That sounds like a smart move.
It is. It helps identify weaknesses in security practices and allows organizations to tailor their training programs to address those gaps. But technology also plays a vital role. Hoffman highlights advanced phishing protection tools that use machine learning and behavior analysis to detect and block malicious emails before they even reach the user's inbox.
It's fascinating how technology is being used to combat these evolving threats. Speaking of evolving threats, Hoffman also talks about threats specific to cloud-based systems.
Yeah, it's an important consideration, especially with so many organizations moving their data and applications to the cloud.
What are some of the key threats he highlights?
One of the biggest is cloud data breaches, which are similar to the breaches of on-premises systems, but often involve exploiting vulnerabilities specific to cloud environments. Hoffman points to misconfigured security settings as a major culprit.
So if a company doesn't properly secure their cloud environment, attackers can slip through the cracks and gain access to sensitive data.
Exactly. It's like leaving a door wide open in your digital fortress. Hoffman also discusses the risks associated with APIs, those application programming interfaces that allow different software systems to communicate with each other.
I've heard about APIs, but don't really understand how they relate to security.
Well, APIs are essential for cloud computing. They allow different services and applications to talk to each other and share data, but if they're not properly designed or secured, they can become a backdoor for attackers.
So a poorly implemented API could allow an attacker to bypass other security measures and gain access to sensitive data.
That's right. It's like having a hidden passageway that attackers can use to sneak past your defenses. Hoffman also mentions the risk of stolen credentials in cloud environments, especially if those credentials belong to someone with administrative privileges.
That makes sense. If an attacker gets their hands on the keys to the kingdom, they can potentially access a wealth of sensitive data and cause a lot of damage.
Exactly, and just like with traditional systems, denial of service attacks are a threat to cloud systems. Attackers can overwhelm a cloud service, with traffic disrupting its operations and denying legitimate users access.
So it's clear that securing cloud environments requires a specialized approach with specific strategies and tools. Hoffman also talks about security intelligence, which sounds like something out of a spy movie.
It kind of is. Security intelligence is all about gathering information about threats to understand the landscape and develop more effective defenses.
So it's about being proactive rather than reactive.
Exactly. It's like having a team of analysts constantly gathering intel on potential enemies and their tactics, so you can anticipate their moves and build stronger defenses.
What does that involve in practice?
Hoffman explains that it involves collecting data from various sources, such as network devices, security tools, and threat feeds. Then you analyze that data to identify patterns, trends, and potential threats.
He mentioned Cisco Talos as a great example of a security intelligence platform. What's so special about it?
Talos is one of the largest security intelligence platforms in the world. It uses a vast network of sensors and researchers to gather information about threats, analyze them, and develop protection mechanisms. It's like a global early warning system for cyber attacks.
That sounds incredible. What kind of information does it gather?
They collect data from all sorts of sources: email traffic, web traffic, malware samples. They even have researchers who infiltrate hacker forums to gather intelligence on emerging threats.
Wow, so they're really on the front lines of the cyber battle. And what do they do with all that information?
They analyze it to identify patterns and develop signatures that can be used to detect and block similar threats in the future. They also share this intelligence with the broader security community, helping organizations of all sizes stay ahead of the curve.
It's amazing how collaboration and information sharing are crucial in this fight against cybercrime. It's not just about protecting yourself, it's about working together to make the entire digital world safer.
I agree. Hoffman also talks about rogue access points, which are unauthorized wireless access points that can pose a significant security risk.
I've heard of those, but I'm not sure I understand the threat.
Think of it like this. Imagine someone setting up a Wi-Fi hotspot in your office building without your knowledge or permission. That hotspot might have a familiar-sounding name like free Wi-Fi or guest network.
So an unsuspecting employee might connect to it thinking it's legitimate.
Exactly. But that rogue access point could be controlled by an attacker who can now intercept their traffic, steal their credentials, or even infiltrate the company's network.
That's terrifying. And Hoffman mentions how easy it is to create one of these rogue access points. How can organizations protect against this threat?
It's all about having robust wireless security measures in place. Intrusion detection systems can help identify and alert you to unauthorized access points. Network access control can restrict which devices are allowed to connect to your network, and regular security audits can help you identify and eliminate rogue access points before they become a problem.
It sounds like a multi-layered approach is needed to secure wireless networks. Now, Hoffman delves back into the world of VPNs, and this time he really gets into the technical details.
He provides a fantastic breakdown of how VPNs work, highlighting their role in protecting data confidentiality, integrity, and authenticity. He goes into detail about ESP and AH.
Those acronyms are a bit intimidating. Can you explain them in a way that makes sense to someone who's not a tech expert?
Sure. Think of ESP, or encapsulating security payload, as a super secure envelope for your data. It encrypts the data and authenticates it, ensuring that it hasn't been tampered with.
So it's like wrapping your sensitive information in layers of protection before sending it through the internet.
Exactly. And then there's AH, or authentication header, which acts like a tamper-proof seal on that envelope. It further ensures that the data packets haven't been modified in transit.
So together they create a secure tunnel for your data, protecting it from prying eyes and ensuring it arrives at its destination intact.
Exactly. And Hoffman points out that a VPN is built from several other components, things like ISMPP policy, Diffie-Hellman keys, and access control lists that all come together to create a secure and reliable connection.
It's fascinating to see how all these pieces fit together to create a secure communication channel. He also discusses different types of VPNs, mentioning transport mode and tunnel mode. What's the difference?
Transport mode only encrypts the payload, the actual data being transmitted, while the header, which contains routing information, remains unencrypted. This mode is typically used for securing communication between two specific devices.
And tunnel mode?
Tunnel mode encrypts the entire packet, including the header. It's like putting the entire envelope with the address and all inside another secure envelope. This mode is generally used for securing communication between two networks, like connecting a branch office to a company's headquarters.
So tunnel mode provides more comprehensive protection as it hides not only the contents of the message, but also the sender and receiver's identities.
Exactly. Hoffman then gets into some more advanced VPN concepts, including IPsec, and the core components that make VPNs work, like ISAM-MP policies and Diffie-Hellman keys.
I have to admit, those are a bit beyond my technical grasp.
Well, think of ISAC-MP or Internet Security Association and Key Management Protocol as the framework that establishes and manages the rules of engagement for secure communication between two devices. It's like setting the ground rules for a secure conversation.
And Diffie-Hellman keys.
Diffie-Hellman is a clever way for two devices to securely agree on a shared secret key, even if they're communicating over an insecure channel. It's like whispering a secret in a crowded room without anyone else hearing it.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
And he also talks about access control lists, or ACLs, which are used to specify what traffic should be encrypted by the VPN.
Right. ACLs act like bouncers controlling who gets in and out of the secure tunnel. They allow you to be very specific about what data is protected and what isn't.
It sounds like configuring a VPN involves a lot of careful planning and attention to detail.
It does, but it's an essential tool for protecting data in transit, especially for remote workers and organizations with multiple locations. Hoffman then moves on to discuss securing endpoints, which, as we mentioned earlier, are devices like computers, laptops, smartphones, and tablets that connect to a network.
And they're often the weakest link in the security chain.
Yeah.
Right? Because they can be lost, stolen, or infected with malware.
Exactly. Hoffman emphasizes a multi-layered approach to endpoint security, starting with educating end users about security best practices.
So even with all the fancy technology, it still comes down to people making smart decisions.
Absolutely. People need to understand the risks and how to mitigate them. They need to be trained to recognize phishing emails, create strong passwords, and avoid risky online behavior.
What other strategies does he recommend for securing endpoints?
He emphasizes the importance of keeping software up to date, installing security patches as soon as they're available. It's like regularly checking your car for recalls and getting those issues fixed before they cause an accident.
That makes sense. What about authentication?
Hoffman is a big advocate for strong authentication methods, such as multi-factor authentication, which adds an extra layer of security by requiring a second form of verification, like a code sent to your phone or a fingerprint scan.
So even if someone steals your password, they can't access your account without that second factor.
Exactly. And he discusses endpoint detection and response solutions, or EDRs, which are powerful tools for monitoring endpoint activity, detecting suspicious behavior, and responding to threats.
So they're like having a security guard stationed at each endpoint watching for any signs of trouble.
That's a good analogy. EDRs can help identify and contain attacks before they spread and cause widespread damage. Hoffman also mentions data encryption as a crucial measure for protecting sensitive information stored on endpoints.
If a device is lost or stolen, encryption scrambles the data, making it unreadable without the decryption key.
Right. And he emphasizes the importance of mobile device management, or MDM, for organizations with employees who use their own devices for work.
MDM allows companies to enforce security policies on those devices, like requiring strong passwords or encrypting data, right?
Exactly. It helps strike a balance between allowing employees to use their own devices for convenience while still maintaining a certain level of security. Hoffman then shifts gears and talks about managing network devices, such as router switches and firewalls. He starts by explaining how these devices can be broken down into different planes or areas of responsibility.
I remember him mentioning the management plane, the control plane, and the data plane. Can you explain what those are in simple terms?
Think of it like this: the management plane is the control center. It's how administrators interact with the device, configuring settings, issuing commands, and monitoring its operation. The control plane is the brains of the operation. It makes decisions about how traffic should flow through the network based on routing protocols and other factors.
And the data plane?
The data plane is the brawn. It's responsible for actually moving the data packets between different interfaces based on the instructions from the control plane.
So each plane has a specific role to play, and they all work together to keep the network running smoothly and securely.
Exactly. And Hoffman stresses the importance of securing the management plane in particular, because if an attacker gains control of it, they can potentially wreak havoc on the entire network.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
If you control the control center, you control everything. What strategies does he recommend for securing the management plane?
It's all about layered security. Start with strong passwords, of course, and limit access to authorized personnel. Disable any unnecessary services that could be exploited, and always use secure protocols like SSH, which encrypts communication between the administrator and the device.
So even if someone is snooping on the network traffic,
Yeah.
they can't see the commands being sent or the responses received?
Exactly. He also highlights the importance of logging and monitoring activity on the management plane.
So you can detect any suspicious activity and take action before it's too late.
Right. It's like having security cameras in your control center recording everything that happens so you can review the footage if something goes wrong.
What about remote management of network devices? It's essential for administrators who need to access those devices from outside the network, but it seems risky from a security standpoint.
It does introduce some challenges, but it's manageable with the right precautions. Hoffman recommends using strong authentication methods like multi-factor authentication to verify the identity of the administrator. He also stresses the importance of secure protocols like SSH and HTTPS, and using VPNs to create a secure, encrypted connection between the administrator's computer and the network devices.
So it's all about creating a secure tunnel for remote management traffic, preventing eavesdropping and unauthorized access.
Exactly. And he discusses SNMP, or Simple Network Management Protocol, which is widely used for managing network devices.
What's important to know about SNMP from a security perspective?
There are different versions of SNMP. SNMP v3 is the most secure version as it supports strong authentication and encryption.
So it's essential to use the most secure version of any protocol or technology to minimize vulnerabilities.
Absolutely. Now, Hoffman also dives into the world of AAA, which stands for Authentication, Authorization, and Accounting.
Those terms sound a bit intimidating.
They're actually pretty straightforward. Authentication is about verifying the identity of someone requesting access, like asking for a username, and password authorization is about determining what resources they're allowed to access once their identity is verified.
So authentication is like checking your ID at the door, and authorization is like giving you a specific key that only opens certain doors.
That's a great analogy. And accounting is about keeping track of who accessed what resources and when, like having a logbook that records everyone's comings and goings.
Makes sense. What are some technologies or protocols used for AAA?
Hoffman discusses RADIUS, which stands for Remote Authentication Dial-In User Service. It's a widely used protocol for centralizing authentication authorization and accounting for network access.
He also mentions TACAC Plus, or Terminal Access Controller Access Control System Plus, which sounds very technical.
It is, but it essentially serves the same purpose as RADIUS. However, TACAC Plus provides more granular control over access and is generally considered more secure.
What other solutions does Hoffman discuss for implementing AAA?
He talks about Cisco, ACS, and ICE. ACS is an older solution, while IIS is newer and more advanced. IIS offers more features, including integration with other security solutions, making it the preferred choice for modern networks.
It sounds like technology is constantly evolving to meet the growing demands of cybersecurity.
Absolutely. And Hoffman emphasizes that understanding these core concepts and technologies is essential for building a strong security posture.
It's all about layers, isn't it? Multiple layers of protection, from basic security hygiene to advanced technologies and protocols.
Exactly. And it's not just about technology. It's about people, processes, and policies all working together to create a secure environment.
It sounds like a fascinating field full of challenges and rewards. What else does Hoffman cover in his exploration of cybersecurity?
He goes on to discuss privilege levels, which determine what actions users are allowed to perform on network devices.
So not everyone has the same level of access or control.
Right. It's about limiting access to only those who need it to perform their jobs. He also talks about syslog and reporting, which are essential for monitoring network activity, detecting security events, and troubleshooting problems.
Syslog is like having a detailed logbook that records everything that happens on your network, and reporting helps you make sense of all that data, identifying trends, anomalies, and potential security breaches.
Exactly. And he discusses SIM technology, which takes security logging to the next level by collecting log data from multiple sources, correlating it, and providing tools for analysis and reporting.
So it's like having a central command center for security monitoring, with dashboards, alerts, and reports that give you a comprehensive view of your security posture.
Exactly. Hoffman then dives into a technique called control plane policing.
That sounds intriguing.
It's all about protecting the control plane of network devices, those brains of the operation we talked about earlier.
And how does it work?
It involves limiting the rate of traffic allowed to reach the control plane, preventing attackers from overwhelming it with bogus requests, and disrupting network operations. He explains how it involves using things called class maps, policy maps, and service policies to define the traffic to be policed and the actions to be taken on that traffic.
It sounds like a way to filter out the noise and ensure that the control plane can focus on its essential tasks.
Exactly. He also covers authenticating routing protocols, which are responsible for exchanging routing information between routers.
Why is authenticating those protocols so important?
Because if those protocols aren't properly secured, an attacker could potentially manipulate them, disrupting routing, redirecting traffic, or even launching denial of service attacks.
So it's about verifying the identity of the routers, exchanging routing information, making sure they are who they claim to be.
Exactly. He then talks about 802.1x authentication, which is a standard for port-based network access control.
How does that work?
It's like having a security guard at each network port, checking the credentials of devices before allowing them to connect. It's often used for authenticating devices, connecting to wired or wireless networks, ensuring that only authorized devices are allowed access.
That's a crucial layer of security, especially in today's world, where so many devices are connecting to networks. What else does Hoffman cover in his comprehensive look at cybersecurity?
He discusses BYOD security, which is about managing the risks associated with employees using their own devices for work.
BYOD can be convenient, but it also introduces security challenges, right?
Absolutely. Hoffman explains how organizations need to develop clear BYOD policies that outline the rules and responsibilities for employees using their own devices. He also emphasizes the importance of mobile device management solutions, or MDMs, which allow organizations to enforce security policies on employee-owned devices, such as requiring strong passwords, encrypting data, and installing security software.
So it's about finding a balance between allowing employees the flexibility to use their own devices while still protecting the organization's data and systems.
Exactly. He then dives into a fascinating topic that underpins much of modern security, the history of cryptography.
I'm curious to learn more about that. I know it involves encrypting data to make it unreadable to unauthorized individuals, but I don't know much about its origins or how it has evolved over time.
Well, Hoffman takes us back to the early days, starting with simple substitution ciphers like the Caesar cipher, where each letter in a message is shifted a certain number of places down the alphabet.
So if you shift each letter 3 places, A becomes D, becomes E, and so on. Seems pretty basic.
It is, but it was a revolutionary concept at the time. He then discusses the visionaries cipher, which was considered the first cipher to use an encryption key. This key is used to determine how the letters in the message are shifted, making it more difficult to crack than the Caesar cipher.
It sounds like a more advanced form of substitution cipher, adding another layer of complexity.
Yeah.
What about modern cryptography? How has it evolved from those early ciphers?
Well, Hoffman takes us through the key concepts of modern cryptography, starting with hash algorithms. These are mathematical functions that take an input, like a message or a file, and produce a fixed size output called a hash value.
And these hash values are unique to the input. So even a tiny change to the input will result in a completely different hash value.
Exactly. That's what makes hash algorithms so valuable for security. They can be used to verify the integrity of data, ensuring that it hasn't been tampered with.
What are some examples of commonly used hash algorithms?
He mentions MD5 and SHA MD5, or Message Digest 5, is an older algorithm that's been found to have some vulnerabilities, so it's not considered secure anymore. SHA, or secure hash algorithm, is a family of hash algorithms, with SHA 256 and SHA 512 being considered more secure than MD5.
So it's important to choose a strong hash algorithm for security-sensitive applications.
Absolutely. Hoffman also discusses how hash algorithms are used for authenticating data, verifying that it came from a trusted source and hasn't been altered in transit.
Can you give an example of how that works?
Sure. Imagine two devices want to communicate securely. They can agree on a shared secret key and use a hash function to create a message authentication code, or MA, which is then attached to the data being transmitted. The recipient can then use the same shared secret key and hash function to verify the MA, ensuring that the data hasn't been tampered with.
That's clever. It's like a digital fingerprint that verifies the authenticity and integrity of the data.
Exactly. And then he talks about cryptanalysis, which is the study of breaking cryptographic systems. It's like a constant arms race between cryptographers who are trying to create secure systems and cryptanalysts who are trying to find ways to break them.
So it's like a cat and mouse game with both sides constantly trying to outsmart each other.
Exactly. And Hoffman describes different types of cryptanalytic attacks, including brute force attacks, which involve trying every possible key until the correct one is found, and dictionary attacks, which involve trying common words and phrases as keys.
Those attacks seem pretty straightforward, but I'm sure there are more sophisticated methods as well.
There are. He also mentions statistical analysis techniques, which can be used to exploit weaknesses in the statistical properties of ciphertext, the encrypted data. It's a fascinating field full of brilliant minds trying to outwit each other.
It sounds like it. What else does Hoffman cover in his exploration of cryptography?
He dives into the different types of encryption, explaining how it transforms plaintext data into ciphertext, making it unreadable without the proper decryption key.
I know there are different types of encryption algorithms, but I'm not sure I understand the distinctions.
He starts by discussing symmetric encryption algorithms, which use the same key for both encryption and decryption.
So the sender and receiver need to have the same key to communicate securely.
Exactly. He mentions DES, or Data Encryption Standard, as an older symmetric encryption algorithm that's no longer considered secure, and he talks about AES, or Advanced Encryption Standard, as a modern, widely used symmetric encryption algorithm that's considered very secure.
So AES is the gold standard for symmetric encryption these days.
It is. Hoffman explains that symmetric encryption is relatively fast and efficient, making it suitable for encrypting large amounts of data, but it does have a key management challenge.
How so?
Well, you need to find a secure way to share the encryption key with the intended recipient. If the key is intercepted or compromised, the entire system is vulnerable.
That makes sense. It's like having a safe with a combination lock. If someone gets their hands on the combination, they can open the safe and steal everything inside. What's the alternative to symmetric encryption?
That's where asymmetric encryption comes in. It uses two separate keys, a public key and a private key.
How does that work?
The public key can be shared freely with anyone, while the private key must be kept secret. The magic is that data encrypted with the public key can only be decrypted with the corresponding private key.
So it's like having two keys to a safe. One key can lock the safe, but only the other key can unlock it.
That's a great analogy. He mentions RSA, or Rives-Shamir-Adleman, as a widely used asymmetric encryption algorithm.
So asymmetric encryption solves the key management problem because you don't have to worry about securely sharing the decryption key.
Exactly. Hoffman also explains how asymmetric encryption is often used for digital signatures, which are like electronic fingerprints that verify the authenticity of a message or document.
I've heard of digital signatures, but I'm not sure I understand how they work.
They provide authentication and non-repudiation. Authentication means verifying the identity of the sender, while non-repudiation means the sender can't deny sending the message.
So it's like signing a document with a pen, but digitally.
Exactly. And they rely on asymmetric encryption to work their magic. Hoffman also delves into the role of certificate authorities, or CAs, which are trusted entities that issue digital certificates.
What are digital certificates?
Think of them like electronic passports that verify the identity of individuals, organizations, and devices.
So they're used to establish trust in the digital world.
Exactly. CAs use digital signatures to vouch for the authenticity of the certificates they issue, creating a chain of trust. And those digital certificates are used for a wide range of purposes, including authenticating websites, encrypting email, and signing code.
It's amazing how much of our digital lives rely on cryptography and these trust mechanisms. What else does Hoffman cover in his exploration of cybersecurity?
He moves on to discuss firewalls, which are essential security devices for protecting networks. He describes them as gatekeepers controlling the flow of traffic between different network segments.
What makes a good firewall?
Hoffman emphasizes that firewalls should be resistant to attacks operating inline so that all traffic must pass through them and configured based on the organization's specific security policies. He also discusses different types of firewall implementations.
What are some of the different types?
He starts with packet filtering firewalls, which are stateless, meaning they don't keep track of the state of connections. They make decisions based on individual packets examining their source, and destination addresses, port numbers, and other criteria.
So they're like security guards who check everyone's ID at the door, but don't remember who has already been granted access.
That's a good way to think about it. Then he moves on to stateful firewalls, which are more intelligent and keep track of the state of connections. They can detect and block more sophisticated attacks than packet filtering firewalls because they understand the context of the communication.
So they're like security guards who have a logbook and can remember who has been granted access and what they're allowed to do.
Exactly. And he discusses proxy servers, which act as intermediaries between clients and servers, providing benefits like caching content, filtering traffic, and hiding the client's IP address.
So a proxy server is like a middleman that can protect the client's privacy and security.
Exactly. And then he moves on to next-generation firewalls, or NGFWs, which offer even more advanced features than traditional firewalls.
What are some examples of those advanced features?
They often include things like application visibility and control, intrusion prevention systems, and advanced malware protection.
So NGFWs are like super smart security guards who can not only check IDs and keep track of who's coming and going, but also analyze behavior and identify potential threats.
That's a good way to think about it. Hoffman explains how NGFWs are context-aware, meaning they can take into account factors like user identity device type location and time of day when making security decisions.
So they're not just blindly following rules, they're making intelligent decisions based on the situation.
Exactly. He also discusses content security, which involves protecting networks from malicious or inappropriate content.
What are some technologies used for content security?
He mentions Cisco WSA and ESA as examples. WSA stands for Web Security Appliance, and it's designed to filter web traffic blocking access to malicious or inappropriate websites. ESA stands for Email Security Appliance, and it's designed to protect email systems from spam phishing attacks and malware.
So they're like filters that remove harmful or unwanted content before it reaches users.
Exactly. He then dives back into the world of VPNs, specifically focusing on remote access VPNs, which we touched on earlier.
Remote access VPNs allow employees to securely connect to the corporate network from outside the office, right?
Exactly. They use encryption and tunneling technologies to protect data in transit, creating a secure connection over the public internet. He discusses different types of remote access VPNs, including SSL VPNs and IPsec VPNs.
What's the difference between those two?
SSL VPNs use the Secure Sockets Layer protocol, which is commonly used for securing web traffic. IPsec VPNs use the Internet Protocol Security Protocol, which is more versatile and can be used to secure a wider range of traffic.
What other aspects of remote access VPNs does Hoffman cover?
He mentions the concept of full tunnel and split tunnel VPN connections in a full tunnel. VPN, all traffic from the remote device, is routed through the VPN tunnel, providing a higher level of security in a split tunnel. VPN-only traffic destined for the corporate network is routed through the VPN tunnel, while other traffic goes directly to the internet.
So a full tunnel VPN is like a private road that only authorized vehicles can use, while a split tunnel VPN is like a public highway with a dedicated lane for authorized vehicles.
That's a great analogy. He also discusses the importance of strong authentication for remote access VPNs, using methods like multi-factor authentication to verify the user's identity.
That makes sense. You don't want just anyone connecting to your network.
Right. He also talks about configuring access control lists, or ACLs, to limit what resources remote users are allowed to access.
So it's not just about letting them in, it's about controlling what they can do once they're inside.
Exactly. Then he moves on to discuss site-to-site VPNs, which are used to create secure connections between two different networks.
So instead of connecting individual users to a network, you're connecting entire networks to each other.
Exactly. For example, you might use a site-to-site VPN to connect a branch office to the company's headquarters.
How do those work?
They often use IPsec to create encrypted tunnels between the two networks. He also discusses DMVPN, or Dynamic Multipoint VPN, which is a Cisco technology that allows for the dynamic creation of VPN tunnels between multiple sites.
That sounds complex.
It is, but it essentially simplifies VPN management in complex network environments where you have many sites that need to be connected instead of having to configure individual tunnels between every pair of sites. DMVPN allows for a more flexible and scalable approach.
That makes sense. It's like having a network of roads that can automatically reconfigure themselves based on traffic patterns.
That's a good way to think about it. Then Hoffman delves back into endpoint security, focusing on specific solutions.
I'm curious to hear what he recommends.
He starts with antivirus software, which is essential for protecting endpoints from malware.
I know antivirus software is important, but I'm not sure how it actually works.
It scans files and processes for known malware signatures, quarantining, or it scans files and processes for known malware signatures, quarantining, or removing infected files. Think of it like a digital immune system constantly scanning for and eliminating threats.
That's a good analogy. And Hoffman emphasizes the importance of keeping your antivirus software up to date with the latest virus definitions.
Right. Those definitions are like updates to your immune system, providing information on new and emerging threats. He also discusses centralized antivirus management software.
I remember him mentioning McAfee EPO as an example. What's the benefit of centralized management?
It allows administrators to deploy, update, and monitor antivirus software across a large number of endpoints from a central console. It's much more efficient than managing each device individually. He also revisits RAID configurations, highlighting their role in protecting data from hard drive failures.
RAID, or redundant array of independent disks, involves using multiple hard drives to store data, providing redundancy and fault tolerance.
Right, exactly. If one hard drive fails, you don't lose all your data. He explains different RAID levels, such as RAID 1, which mirrors data across 2 drives for fault tolerance, and RAID 5, which stripes data across multiple drives with parity information for both performance and fault tolerance.
So you can tailor your RAID configuration to your specific needs and risk tolerance.
Right. And he touches on RAID 6, which provides even higher levels of fault tolerance by using double parity, essentially having 2 backup copies of your data distributed across multiple drives.
Yeah.
He also talks about the importance of data backups, which are essential for recovering from data loss.
Data backups are like insurance for your data.
That's a great way to think about it. He explains different types of backups, such as full backups, which copy everything, and incremental backups, which only copy data that has changed since the last backup.
So you can choose the backup strategy that best fits your needs and resources.
Yeah.
What else does Hoffman recommend for protecting data?
He highlights the importance of having a data recovery plan, which outlines the steps to take in case of data loss, ensuring a smooth and timely recovery. He also discusses physical security, which is often overlooked.
Physical security, what does that involve?
It's about protecting physical assets, such as buildings, equipment, and data centers, from unauthorized access, theft, and damage.
So it's not just about protecting data in the digital realm, but also in the physical world.
Exactly. He mentions things like access control systems, surveillance cameras, and security guards as common physical security measures. He also highlights the importance of environmental controls, such as fire suppression systems and temperature regulation to protect sensitive equipment.
That makes sense. You wouldn't want a fire or a power outage to destroy your data center.
Right. Hoffman then revisits proxy servers, explaining how they can provide various benefits, including caching content, filtering traffic, and hiding the client's IP address.
We talked about proxy servers earlier, but I'm still a bit fuzzy on the different types.
He discusses forward proxies, which forward requests from clients to servers, reverse proxies, which forward requests from clients to multiple servers, and transparent proxies, which intercept traffic without the client's knowledge. He also highlights the security benefits of proxy servers, such as preventing direct connections between clients and servers, filtering malicious content, and logging user activity.
So they provide an extra layer of protection and control over network traffic.
Exactly. He then discusses a topic that's increasingly relevant today: VPNs and privacy.
VPNs are often marketed as privacy tools. How do they actually enhance privacy?
They encrypt internet traffic and mask the user's IP address, making it more difficult for third parties like internet service providers or hackers to track their online activity. This is especially important when using public Wi-Fi networks, which are often unsecured.
So they create a secure tunnel for your data, shielding it from prying eyes.
Exactly. But Hoffman cautions that not all VPN providers are created equal. Some providers may keep logs of user activity, which could compromise their privacy.
So it's important to choose a reputable provider with a strong privacy policy.
Absolutely. He then dives into data integrity, which is about ensuring that data hasn't been altered or corrupted.
We talked about hash algorithms earlier, and I remember you saying they play a crucial role in data integrity.
That's right. Hash algorithms can be used to verify that a file or message hasn't been tampered with if even a single bit is changed. The hash value will be different. He also discusses data availability, which is about making sure data is accessible to authorized users when they need it.
So it's not just about protecting data from unauthorized access or modification. It's also about making sure it's available when needed.
Exactly. He explains how things like hardware failures, natural disasters, and cyber attacks can threaten data availability, and he discusses strategies for ensuring availability, such as data backups, redundant systems, and disaster recovery plans.
So it's about planning for the unexpected and having backup systems in place. What else does Hoffman cover in his discussion of data protection?
He emphasizes the importance of security, logging, and monitoring, which we've touched upon throughout our deep dive logging, involves recording security-related events like login attempts or file accesses, while monitoring involves analyzing those logs for suspicious activity.
He's mentioned SIEM solutions, intrusion detection systems, and security analytics platforms as tools for logging and monitoring.
Right. These tools can help security teams make sense of the vast amounts of data generated by modern networks and identify potential threats. He stresses the importance of having a well-defined security monitoring process that includes clear roles and responsibilities, escalation procedures, and incident response plans.
So it's not just about collecting data, it's about having a plan for what to do with that data and how to respond effectively to security incidents.
Absolutely. Now, Hoffman also provides some valuable insights into the world of cybersecurity professionals, outlining the different roles and responsibilities in this field. He explores the pros and cons of cybersecurity jobs, highlighting both the rewards and the demands of this career path. On the plus side, he mentions the high demand for cybersecurity professionals, the intellectual stimulation of the work, and the potential to make a real difference in protecting organizations and individuals from cyber threats.
But he also acknowledges the challenges, like the constant pressure to stay ahead of evolving threats, the potential for burnout, and the need to continuously learn and adapt. It sounds like a challenging but ultimately rewarding career path.
It is. And he emphasizes the importance of soft skills in cybersecurity in addition to technical expertise.
What kind of soft skills are important?
Things like communication, teamwork, and problem-solving abilities. Being able to communicate effectively with both technical and non-technical audiences, collaborate effectively with others, and think critically to solve complex problems are essential for success in this field. He offers some great advice for aspiring cybersecurity professionals, highlighting the importance of education certifications and networking.
What specific recommendations does he make?
He encourages people to pursue formal education in cybersecurity, obtain industry-recognized certifications, and actively network with other professionals. He also emphasizes the importance of practical experience, suggesting internships capture the flag competitions and contributions to open-source security projects.
So it's a combination of formal education, hands-on experience, and building relationships within the industry. What about choosing a specific career path within cybersecurity? Does Hoffman offer any guidance there?
He outlines various roles and responsibilities. He talks about security consultants who provide security advice and services to organizations. They often perform security assessments, develop security policies, and implement security solutions. He also mentions security analysts who monitor security systems, detect and respond to security incidents, and conduct forensic investigations.
What other roles does he describe?
He talks about security engineers who are responsible for designing, implementing, and maintaining security systems. They often work with firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and other security technologies. And he mentions security architects who develop and maintain the overall security architecture of an organization, working at a strategic level to ensure that security is integrated into all aspects of the organization's operations.
It sounds like there's a wide range of career paths within cybersecurity, each with its own unique challenges and rewards.
There is, and Hoffman provides some valuable insights into the cybersecurity job market, outlining the skills and qualifications that are in high demand. He stresses the need for a strong understanding of networking operating systems and security principles. He also highlights specific technical skills, like experience with firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and vulnerability assessment tools. And of course, he mentions the value of certifications like the CISP, CISM, and CEH, which demonstrate a professional's knowledge and expertise.
It's like a roadmap for anyone interested in pursuing a career in cybersecurity.
It is. He also encourages aspiring professionals to develop a strong portfolio of skills and experience showcasing their accomplishments and contributions to the field. He also suggests leveraging online platforms like LinkedIn to network with other professionals and showcase their skills and experience. And he reminds everyone of the importance of staying up to date in this constantly evolving field.
How does he recommend staying current?
He encourages professionals to read industry publications, attend conferences, and participate in online forums and communities to stay abreast of the latest threats, technologies, and best practices. He also recommends continuing education opportunities, such as online courses and certifications, to enhance their skills and knowledge. He emphasizes the importance of staying curious and continuously learning.
It's a field that demands lifelong learning and adaptability.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating and rewarding field for those who are passionate about technology and security.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today. It's been a fascinating deep dive into the world of cybersecurity, exploring everything from basic concepts to advanced technologies, and even the human element that underpins it all. Thank you for all the great information.
It's been my pleasure. I always enjoy these deep dives.
And thanks to you out there for listening in. And remember, cybersecurity is a journey, not a destination. So stay curious, keep learning, and stay safe out there.